Chapter 2 was mind-blowing, right? As we start chapter 3, which it's crazy because chapter 2 is not the climax. This is all rising action, but it sets up the entire book. So what happened in chapter 2? Let's do it. So chapter 3, May 19th. So this is the day after, right? All this stuff. I woke up around 6 to the sound of the phone ringing. I threw on my robe and went to Mom's room. "It's your father," she said, and handed me the phone. Right after Mom and Dad split up, I got it into my head that I'd never see or hear from him again. And every time he called, I get this ridiculous sensation of relief. I felt the exact same way, like a 100-pound weight had just flown out of my stomach. "Are you okay? And Lisa, is she all right?" "We're both fine. Your mother says everything's fine where you are, and you heard from Matt last night." "That's right. We tried to reach you and Grandma, but last night and the circuits were all busy." "I reached her late last night. She's fine. A little shaken, but that's natural enough. We're lucky, Miranda. We all seem to have made it, no problem." "I feel like it should have been a dream," I said. "Like maybe I'm still dreaming, and when I wake up, none of it will have happened." "That's how we all feel. Your mother says school hasn't canceled. I guess the idea is for us to get on with our lives and be grateful that we can." "All right, I can take a hint. Give my love to Lisa, okay? And tell her I was thinking about her and the baby." "I will. Love you, honey." "Love you too, Daddy." And I gestured to Mom to see if she wanted the phone back, but she shook her head, so I hung up. "How late did you stay up? Did anything happen?" "Oh, I went to bed around the same time you did. I saw you turned out your light, and I didn't sleep very well, though. Kept waking up and turning on the radio, that kind of thing." "Did the tide stop? Did the flooding stop?" They've stopped. They've started. It's very bad." Very bad doesn't really describe it. Catastrophic. They don't know how bad the damage is yet and how many countries are affected. "Countries?" I said. Somehow I'd forgotten there were other countries, that we shared the moon with other countries. I don't know. They don't know. Nobody knows. Holland was decimated, and they're pretty sure about that. Australia, most of the cities are on the coast, so it was very badly hit. The tides just went mad. They think the asteroid was denser than they assumed it would be, so the collision was bigger. They think the moon got knocked off kilter and got pushed closer to Earth. At least that's the theory around 5. But it's not going to crash into the Earth, right? We're okay, right? We don't live close to the ocean. They're sure it won't crash into the Earth, at least not in the foreseeable future. But beyond that, I don't think anybody's predicting anything. It was funny. I was actually glad school was on. Like that proved we'd be okay. I left Mom, took a shower, and by the time I dressed and went downstairs, Mom had already started breakfast and I can hear Johnny moving around. Mom made pancakes, which she never does on a school day. I didn't think I'd have an appetite, but I ate more than my share. So did Johnny. I don't remember seeing Mom eat any, but there was batter left, so maybe she made some for herself after we left. I went outside to wait for the bus, looked up, and I could see the moon in the morning sky. It was still bigger than it should have been, and it didn't seem quite as washed out as it usually looks in the daytime. I stopped looking at it and concentrate on the dogwoods instead. On the bus, all anybody talked about was what happened last night. Not that anyone really seemed to know or understand. A couple of the kids seemed to think it was cool. A couple of girls were crying the whole trip. I sat next to Sammy, but she didn't say much. Megan didn't get on the bus, and neither did her church friends. The bus was only half full. I hated the kids who were acting like it was all a big joke. There are lots of kids missing from homeroom too, but most of the teachers seem to have shown up. We just started history when the first lightning bolt landed. Wait, what? What's happening? It flashed so brightly that the whole classroom seemed illuminated. The thunder followed, loud enough to shake the building. At least one kid screamed. I was just glad it wasn't me. Miss Hamish tried to pretend the storm wasn't happening, but there was no way we could avoid talking about the moon. She asked how many of us knew someone who had lived on the coast who might have been affected. All our hands went up. I don't know anyone who actually lives there, but I feel like I do because all the stars live in Hollywood or New York. I know I don't know them, but I feel like I do. All the kids said that they felt that way too. I guess Miss Hamish was going to tell us that was a normal way to feel, but then the lightning bolt hit one of the trees right outside the school grounds. The tree burst into flames and we lost electricity. Scary? Yeah. A lot of the kids started screaming then. Michelle began sobbing real hysterical sobs, and the other kids started crying too. Sarah pulled out her cell phone to call home, or maybe 911, but she couldn't get a connection, and she threw her cell phone across the room. The thunder kept rolling and the tree began to smolder from the fire and the rain. It was weird. There was all this craziness going on around me, and Miss Hamish was trying to calm everyone down. We could only hear her because we could hardly hear her because the thunder was so loud and kids all over the school were screaming. So it wasn't just our classroom. I just didn't feel anything. I wasn't screaming or crying. I was just noticing things, how the winds picked up, how branches were flying out around outside, how the storm didn't seem to be letting up any. Miss Hamish must have decided it was a tornado because she told us all to get up and go into the hallway. I don't know how many kids heard her, but I did. And I got up and started walking around the classroom, lifting other kids out of their seats until they figured out what we were supposed to do. By the time we evacuated the room, there were lots of kids sitting on the hallway floor, and we joined them. I kind of missed being able to see the storm. It didn't feel like a tornado, and I felt like the world was coming to an end, and I was going to miss all the action because I was going to be sitting in the hallway floor when it did. And then I thought, well, that's typical. I can't even get any action when the world's coming to an end. And then I started laughing. It wasn't hysterical laughing. I mean, it was really funny that the world was coming to an end. I still couldn't get any action. But once I started, I couldn't stop. Other kids were laughing too. So the hallway consisted of kids laughing and kids crying and kids screaming and teachers walking around and checking classrooms to make sure they were empty. The hallway is completely dark except for the flashes of lightning we can see from the classroom windows. I managed to stop laughing, but then I thought at least nobody's singing the Star-Spangled Banner, and then I started laughing all over again. The phrase, "by the dawn's early light," got stuck in my mind, and I kept hearing it over and over again. By the dawn's early light, by the dawn's early light. And I wondered how many people had sung "By the dawn's early light" yesterday and were dead today. Oh, that was a mood changer. We were in the hallway for almost an hour. It's hard to stay hysterical for that long, and by the time the hour was over, the storm had died down and almost all the kids were quiet except one girl who kept screaming, "I don't want to die!" Like any of us did. We went back to our second period classrooms, even though it was already fourth period. It was still raining with thunder and lightning, but the winds had calmed down and the lightning was farther away. Some of the kids who'd been crying were just shaking. Electricity was still wasn't on, and the lightning not striking so close or frequently, things were actually darker in the classroom. The sky was still a mean gray, and I think we all felt like the storm could just come back at any moment, full tilt, and we'd be back in the hallway. Miss Hamish didn't tell us to go to fourth period classes. We just all sat there instead. But I couldn't totally shake by the dawn's early light from my head, and I was kind of wishing Miss Hamish would distract us with a history lesson when in walked Mom. She was soaking wet and looked wild and determined. I thought, something's happened to Matt, and that stomach weight came right back like it had never gone. "Come on, Miranda, get your books and let's go." Miss Hamish stared at her, but she didn't say anything. I got my books and followed Mom out of the classroom. I thought, if I don't ask what happened, it won't have happened. So I kept quiet as we left school. Mom didn't say anything either. The rain was just pouring and the thunder was still pretty loud. And I thought the world was really coming to an end. And Mom just wants me home when it happened. We ran to the parking lot and Johnny opened the door for me. I jumped in and was surprised to see Mrs. Nesbit sitting in the passenger seat. I could see Mom not wanting Mrs. Nesbit to be alone when the world ended, but I couldn't figure out why she had driven somewhere first. "Here, Miranda, take this." And she handed me an envelope. I looked inside and saw 10 $50 bills. Mom started the car. I looked at Johnny, who just shrugged. "Let's find out." When we get to the supermarket, I want Johnny to go to the pet food department. "Johnny, you know what Horton will eat. Get kitty litter too and put bags on the bottom of the wagon. Get the biggest bags that'll fit there. Fill the wagon with as many dry food as you can." Horton likes canned. Well, get the little ones, the expensive kind, as many as you can throw into the empty spaces. Fill the wagon as high as you possibly can. And Mrs. Nesbit, when you get to the paper goods, don't forget Tampax for Miranda and me. Lots of boxes. Thanks for reminding me. What's going on? Would someone please tell me? "It's just in case the world's coming to an end," Johnny said. "Mom wants us to be ready." I went to the bank this morning and I filled the gas tank and the gas was already $5 a gallon. I went to the supermarket and the electricity was out and there was chaos there. So they just said $100 for each wagon, no matter what was in it. I had a lot of cash on me, so I filled the wagon and went back and got Mrs. Nesbit and Johnny and you so we can each get wagons to fill. Wait. What the heck are wagons? You don't really think we're going to need all this stuff. Everything's going to be back to normal soon, isn't it? Not in my lifetime, Mrs. Nesbit said. We don't know, but kitty litter doesn't go bad. And if it turns out I'm wrong and I've wasted all this money, well, fine. I just soon as the world gets back to normal. But in case it takes a while, we might as well have toilet paper. Miranda, you're going to get canned vegetables and fruits. You know what we like. Mom, we don't eat canned vegetables. Well, we do now. Canned vegetables, fruits, soups too. Lots of cans of soup. Find the cartons in the back of the car and put them on the bottom shelf of the cart. Fill those cartons up too. Get as much as you can in the wagon. I stared out the window. The rain was still falling, and the occasional flashes of lightning could still be seen in the distance. The electricity was out, so corners of traffic lights were crazy, and the cars stopping and starting, not even knowing what to do. I saw lots of trees had fallen, and cars were driving over the smaller branches that littered the streets. Mom just plowed through. What about desserts? If the world's coming to end, I'm going to want cookies. We're all going to want cookies if the world comes to an end, Mrs. Nesbit agreed. And chips and pretzels. And if the world's coming to an end, why should I care about my blood pressure? All right, we'll die fat. Grab what you can and ram them into your wagons. But remember, if we actually need this stuff, we're going to be a lot more grateful for the cans of soup than boxes of stale cookies. Speak for yourself. Get Progresso. They don't need water. Mom, we have water. Which reminds me, after you pay for your first wagons, put the stuff in the car and go back. Johnny, get water. Get as many bottles as you can fit in. Mrs. Nesbit, you get whatever you think you're going to want. Miranda, you go to health and beauty aids. Get aspirin, peroxide, Band-Aids. Great. Our world's coming to an end and we're fixing it with Band-Aids. Vitamins. Get lots and lots of vitamins, laxatives, calcium, vitamin D. This is so hard trying to remember everything we need. Or might not. Mom, I love you, but this is crazy. Okay, so we'll get vitamin D for Christmas presents. Just do it, okay? Johnny, Mrs. Nesbit, I have the car keys, so just wait for one of us to show up and we'll put your stuff with theirs, okay? Sure, I said, because I decided it was better to humor her. After we finished our second loads, we'll see what it's like, and then we'll see if it's worth to go back in. She pulled into the supermarket parking lot, and I got a real sense of the madness going on. There were people racing for carts, people screaming, two guys punching each other out. Johnny, get a wagon for Mrs. Nesbit first. Everyone, stay calm. Remember, you have cash. That's all they're taking, and we have the real advantage there. Work fast. Don't debate. If you can't decide between two things, take both. Pack the carts as high as you can manage. If you have any problems, go to the car. Don't try to find anyone in the store, okay? Are you ready? We said we all were. Johnny looked like he actually meant it. Mom found a parking spot towards the back of the lot and where there were two carts there. We raced out of the car and grabbed them. Mrs. Nesbit and I took one and went to the store together. The supermarket reminded me of a hallway at school this morning and maybe just because I'd just been through all that, the store didn't scare me as much as it ordinarily would have. So what if people were screaming and crying and fighting? I plowed through people and raced to the canned vegetables. I realized I'd forgotten the cartons at the bottom of the wagon. There's nothing I can do about that except put as many cans at the bottom as I could hope for the best, except for the total terror I was feeling in the pit at my stomach. It was kind of fun, like those game shows where everyone wins 5 minutes in the supermarket, except there were dozens of other winners and we were all there at the same time. I didn't much have time to look around, but it seemed like most of the people were buying meats and produce. Wah, wah. And they weren't thinking that, and there weren't that many people fighting over canned carrots. I even looked out with the soups. Campbell was a lot more popular than Progresso, which made my life a whole lot easier. When I filled the cart as full as I possibly managed, I went to the checkout lines and discovered people were throwing cash at the poor, terrified cashiers. I took two 50s out, tossed them in the same general direction, and since nobody seemed to be bagging, I pushed the cart out to the store and made my way to the car. It was actually raining harder. Yeah, totally. The storm seemed to be closer. Not as bad as it had been this morning, but bad enough. I was relieved to see Mrs. Nesbit standing by the car waiting for me. We threw all the cans in the car and put the jars in a little more carefully. Mrs. Nesbit grinned at me. All my life I've been well behaved. It's about time I got to push people around and not apologize. Mrs. Nesbit, you little devil. Ready for round two? She asked. And I said I was, and we made our way back to the store. Except some guy tried to steal the cart from Mrs. Nesbit. Get your own! Oh, wait, just kidding. Mrs. Nesbit said, I need it. Give it to me. Get your own, she said. This is war, man. And I was afraid the man thought that's exactly what it was. I didn't know what else to do, so I ran my wagon into his back and caught him by surprise. That gave Mrs. Nesbit just enough time to pull away from him. I raced away also and didn't look back. Compared to the battles in the parking lot, the store almost seemed comfy. I went to the health and beauty aids and found it fairly empty. I guess the rest of the world hadn't realized they were going to need vitamin D. The great thing about ransacking painkillers was I knew I was getting way more than $100 worth of stuff. I filled the cart to overflowing, stopped one more time at the canned goods, and then over to baked goods, where I put boxes and boxes of cookies on the cart's bottom shelf and remembered Fig Newtons since Matt likes them. This time I found Mom unloading her stuff in the car. She bought enough tuna fish and salmon and sardines to last us 2 lifetimes. Gross. The back of the van was as much as a madhouse as the store since there weren't any bags for anything. Mom was trying to unload as best she could, but things kept falling out and I spent as much time grabbing stuff from the pavement as Mom did unloading. A man came over to us. He had a wagon, but he looked desperate. Please help me. You have a wagon. I need you to come with me. My wife is 7 months pregnant, and I have a 2-year-old, and I need diapers and baby food, and I don't know what else. Please come in with me so I can use your car. I beg you, for my wife and my babies. How many of you would go? I know, I would too. Mom and I looked at him. He looked sincere. He was in his late 20s and he seemed sincere. Miranda, go back to the store and just use your best judgment. I'm going with this man. We finished ramming stuff into the van and then the three of us went back in. I felt better catching a glimpse of Mrs. Nesbitt as we walked in. She was at Gourmet Foods. I guess she figured she might as well go out in style. I also found Johnny finishing up in the water section. He seemed to be enjoying himself. I went over to juices and selected juices that were in cans or in cartons. In a million years, I never thought we'd be drinking canned juice, but bottles were just too hard to deal with. I also got some of that last forever milk. By that point, a lot of the shelves were nearly empty, and people were starting to fight over single boxes of things. There were broken eggs on the floor, spilt liquids, so walking around was just getting tricky. There was some room in my cart, so I went over to snacks and got a couple of boxes of pretzels. I spotted canned nuts and threw in some of those. Baked goods seemed pretty empty, so I filled the wagon with cartons of salt and bags of sugar, and just for the hell of it, a bag of chocolate chips. I threw my 50s at the cashier and made my way to the van. The parking lot was getting nastier and the rain was still falling hard. Johnny was there, but as soon as Mom showed up, she told the both of us to get back in and ransack the shelves for anything we can find. There really wasn't much left in the store, but I managed to fill the cart with lima beans, Brussels sprouts, and other end-of-the-world delicacies. When we finally got to the van, Mom wouldn't let any of us talk until she maneuvered her way out of the lot. By that point, we were too exhausted to make conversation anyway. Mom started driving home. The roads were even worse than they had been. At one point, Johnny and I had to get out of the van and clear a big branch off the road. A couple of other people showed up and helped us, but I was scared until we got back in the van and Mama started driving again. Stop at the strip mall, you think? Johnny, you go to the pet supply store. I'm going to the gift shop. Laura, you go to the nursery. Good idea. I'll buy just vegetable flats. We'll have fresh produce all summer. That didn't leave much for me, so I went to the antique store. I don't know why, but then again, I don't know why Mrs. Nesbitt was so insistent in going to the gift shop. It wasn't like Hallmark printout Happy End of the World Day cards. The great thing about the antique store was that I was the only customer. There wasn't any electricity and the lightning flashes were still too close for comfort, but it was the only place I'd been to in hours that didn't seem like a mound house. The woman behind the counter said, Can I help you? I didn't want to give away our secret that we were stocking up for the end of the world, just in case it gave her any ideas. So I said, no thanks, and kept looking. I still had $200 in my envelope, so I could buy pretty much anything we needed. If only I could figure out what that we might need. And then I saw 3 oil lamps. I grabbed them and went out front. We have the scented oil to go with them if you're interested. I'll take them. We should be getting electricity back soon. That's what I heard on the radio. My mom's just worried. This will make her feel better. The store had an old-fashioned cash register, so she was able to ring up my purchase. I handed over 2 50s and actually got change. I was the first person in the car. I stood there getting even wetter until Johnny showed up. Horton's never going to go hungry, he said. There were hardly room for all the stuff he'd bought, but we rearranged everything that we could. Then Mrs. Nesbitt came out carrying bags and bags. I bought every candle in the store. Gift shops always have candles. Mrs. Nesbitt, you're a genius. I got oil lamps. We're both geniuses. We got in the van and waited for Mom. When she showed up, she had a dozen flats. I had no idea how we're going to fit them in, but it turned out to be easy. Mrs. Nesbitt sat on my lap, and we used all her space with flats of tomatoes, cucumbers, string beans, and strawberries. The more we harvest, the longer the canned foods will last. Okay, is there anything anyone didn't buy that we might need? Batteries, I said. The transistor radio had in the shop made me think of them. Matches. Okay, that convenience store will have them. They don't sell gas, so it should be pretty quiet. She was right. There's only one car in the lot. Mom bought all the batteries and box matches and bars of soap. She even bought a coffee cake and a box of donuts. Just in case the world ends tomorrow. We might as well enjoy today. We dropped off Mrs. Nesbitt at her house, and we carried food and supplies for her. We didn't fuss over which cans of soup belonged to who or whether she was entitled to more candles. We just divvied stuff up so that she had plenty. We kept the cat food and vegetable flats. I made sure that she had an oil lamp and oil to go with it. It took a long time to get her stuff out and a longer time to unload the car when we finally got home. Mom got shopping bags and we filled them and put everything in the dining room except for the donuts. Those we ate as soon as we finished. I'll sort things out later. Thanks, kids. I could never have done this without you. And then she started crying. That was 2 hours ago. I don't think she stopped crying yet.